which are hard to remove. What we are possibly not agreed on, or different people have different opinions, is of what is that change that is needed and how should it be made. These are the two issues that we got. What are the changes needed and how do you make that change? So if, I mean, are you with me on that?
Yes.
It's a common agenda. So we must make sure that in the little bit of time we don't go away from that agenda.
Yes. Thank you.
So to take it one at a time, firstly, what is the problem? I mean, I'll give you some sort of starters, if you like. What I see almost globally is that there is a word which popped up into education, literally popped up out of nowhere, and that word was disengagement. Disengagement. I love that word because it's such a horrible word. Children who disengage. But then I thought to myself, maybe it's a return to something that actually did happen in my generation, except that we never figured out a big word like disengagement. We used to call it turn on, tune in, drop out. We used to do that in the 1960s. And that was a global movement, and it produced, unfortunately, a terrible change in education. Of children running about doing whatever they wanted to. Nobody ever cut their hair. It was hippie education. And the government watched this and quite rightly at a certain point just stepped in and said, stop it. And they reversed the whole thing all around the world. And by the 1980s, they were producing only chartered accountants and financial analysts, who in the 1990s almost wrecked the whole world. So this is history of education in very short. So now we are trying to recover from that. Now we've got this wave of another lot of people who are saying, I don't want to be a financial analyst and I don't want to be a chartered accountant because it didn't work. And you'll be surprised at the number of young financial analysts I know who have come to me and say, I want to leave my job. And they're hugely paid. They get paid like 5-6 times what a professor gets paid. And they say, I want to leave my job. I say, what do you want to do? I want to go and change education. Why? So, because they produce me. I don't want that. So this is the scenario in which you're operating. Now, firstly, who's the villain? Well, it's very easy to say it's the government that's the villain, but that's not true really, because I've spoken to lots and lots of people in government, in various governments, and when they're sitting in a forum like this, they're the first guys who will say, yes, it's a rotten system. But then if they're honest enough and if they're friends, they will tell me, when I walk out of here and I go back and sit down in my office, I'm not going to say what I said here. Okay. So they're not the villains. It's the system which is making them do and be what they are. The system is basically the industrial system. You know that bit of the story, the empire-driven, then industrial revolution-driven, and then capitalist-driven system. What does that system want? The system wants identical people. Because if you've got to have a consumer base, what's better than to have everybody wanting the same thing, and then you just produce that thing and sell it to everyone. So you want identical people. The education system happily produces that. That's why you have the pass-fail. If everybody passes, everybody's identical. But if you've got, if you've passed in English and failed in math, then you failed. Okay, and vice versa. So why is that? Because of this identical people thing. So that if you take that as the problem, then no point dreaming about it. We've got to figure out how do we get out of this and what shall we do. So I happen to have one take on it, but I'll come to that take later on. I'll first say what are the possible ways we could impact the system. One way is the official way, politics and government. In principle, in a democratic society, we would vote the bad guys out, we vote the good guys in, and they'll change everything. In practice, unfortunately, it doesn't work. Okay? We've just found out in, I think, the last decade or so, that it doesn't work. You know, you can corrupt it like any other thing. So that goes out of the window. So then what do we do? Well, if you were in the 1970s, then you'd say, drop out, I'm never going to vote again. But that's not going to work either. Okay, so we'll go on, we'll get the next election, we'll vote the next guy in. Everybody will start by saying, my fundamental agenda, if I win, will be education. Just think, if in this country, think 3, 4, 5 presidents back, everybody started their campaign with that. Okay? And then after they've won, I watch from the outside. In about 3 months, it's all gone. All education talk disappears. So, so we can safely assume that that will happen in government after government. Why do they pick on education? Because it's easy to get the parents' votes. If you say that I'm going to do good things for your child. So it's a sitting duck. You just won't do that. So why would a politician want to change the education system at all? It's particularly difficult to imagine why he would. At worst, I can say he might change the higher education system. Because higher education's got people who are over 18 years old. And he might say, I'm going to give you extra scholarships, and all these 20-year-old hep guys say, wow, man, this is cool, I'm going to vote for you. so he's going to impact on the higher education. The one lot that the politician's never going to care two hoots about is elementary education. Because the payback period is too long. Who are the people who impact elementary education? A few in history. They are either statesmen or saints. I mean, saints as in, you look at Montessori or somebody like that. But nobody else. So you can't base change on this kind of divine intervention. Is there a simpler way to impact elementary education? And that's where I'm coming from. So I just wanted you to know that it's not that